Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu, salamu, rasulullah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm Catherine Jones, emotional and spiritual resilience educator, mentor and coach, and founder of the Back to the Fitra Mentoring Academy. And today the topic is a focus on fear. So in today's session, inshallah, I'm going to talk about fear because there is a lot of fear that we are experiencing around what is happening right now. And of course, fear is something that comes up in life, in many elements of life. So fear, I've broken fear down into three different categories. Sort of natural fear, and Akhirah fear, and Dunyah fear. And I want to just define fear first. Let's start with natural fear. So natural fear, or the fear that I'm talking about here, is where our reptilian brain, the oldest part of our brain, is in operation. It's when we have a natural fear response to something. So if a snake was to jump out of the grass, we would naturally leap. There wouldn't be this deliberation first, what should I do? We would just naturally take action. And so that is a fear response. It's for our own safety, right? So that's not the fear that I really want to focus on today. That is a natural fear that's there to protect us. It's an inbuilt response in us. Then we have the Akhirah fear. So the Akhirah fear is where we fear displeasing Allah. And if we want to, I guess, understand that fear, it's also a very natural fear. It's something we were born with in our fitra state, that natural connection, trust and belief in Allah that also came with a natural instinct to please Allah and to fear displeasing Allah. It's not an anxious sort of fear. It's not a fear that tends to debilitate us or cause us grief. It's really a natural fear that also protects us, but from a spiritual perspective, it protects us from displeasing Allah. So the fear to focus on today is the Dunyah fear, or fearing, Allah's creation. And I want to show you today that this fear is just thought in the moment, that this is our thinking clouding our judgment and getting in the way of us having this beautiful, true connection with Allah. So here I have, this is, you're not going to be able to see this very well. Okay, can sort of see it. I've got a green screen background to give you this beautiful background in the background. It's doing some weirdo things with the display, as you can tell. Look, see the glass? SubhanAllah. I wonder, yeah, if I put it there, it almost disappears. Okay, I'm going to put it in front of me so you can see it. So see, there's a light in there. This light is to represent our connection with Allah and the nur that comes from that guidance from Allah, right? So this tea bag, this is going to represent fearful thinking. So if we just were to dunk that in for a moment, so we've had a fearful thought, and then we pull it back out again, apart from the fact that the screen's doing funny things. As you can see, it hasn't really done much, has it? It's just, there's a slight discoloring of the water, but the light, when I can get this into a position where you can see it again properly, the light is still shining quite brightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that tea bag in there for a while, and I'm going to put it down while I talk to you, and I'll show you again in a minute. So leaving the tea bag in there is representing ruminating or holding on to fearful thoughts, and we're going to see what that looks like afterwards. But I want to just explain why we're waiting for the tea bag to sit there and ruminate for a while. That what is getting in the way of us having that good guidance from Allah and that good connection with Allah, being able to be in our state of wisdom and not being in a state of fear and behaving out of fear, is our thoughts. and thoughts that we're hanging on to, and that all it is that we're hanging on to fearful thoughts if this fear of this dunya is getting in the way of us having clarity and wisdom and calm and confidence through, difficult times. Because at the end of the day, it's all in Allah's hands, and our job is really to show up and do the best we can with what we have at the time. So if we think about it, I don't know who's listening here and what the situation is for you and your family with regards to the coronavirus. However, I'll just take my situation for the moment. None of my family have it. We're barely having anything to do with anyone else, so there's a very slim chance of us catching it because we're in isolation, because that's what our Prime Minister has requested us to do. So in actual fact, right now, in this very minute, there's actually no one near me, and I'm not suffering from it, so I am safe. Physically, I am safe. There's nothing for me to fear right now in this minute. But if I was to start thinking about the possibilities and focusing on the 5% who will really get this seriously rather than the 80% who have just very mild symptoms, I could really build up a sensation of not feeling safe, even though I am actually safe. And so one of the things to understand is the difference between our actual safety and psychological safety. So a lot of what people are doing is they're trying to feel safe by doing stuff that leads them to think, oh, I'm safe now. But the reality is there's no difference in what's going on with them physically, or they're no less safe from one moment to the next. It's just the thinking that they're having changing, subhanAllah. So let's now have a look here. We'll just check in with our thing here. It's really hard to see. I'm sorry, this idea of having a beautiful background for you has really not done well for my experiment. But I think you can see kind of now that we've got a fairly dark tea going on here. What's happened to the spark inside, or the light or the glow, the nur inside? It's dimmed, isn't it? It's not that bright shining light that we had before. It's actually looking like a hole at the moment. There we go, put it there. See, it's really dim. And that's essentially what our thinking does to our wisdom, to our connection with Allah. It is dimming that nur that we have, that light that we have from Allah, because our thinking is getting in the way of it. So that's my little demo of what happens. So one of the things when I tell people that is they then think, oh, well, then I need to control my thinking. And it's not about controlling your thinking. If I get you to just now, this minute, okay, for the next 15 seconds, and I'll tell you when to stop, just to think only about blue chickens. All right, you can only think about blue chickens. No other single thought can enter into your mind starting from now. Okay, stop. I think that was about 15 seconds. I can guarantee you that while many of you were able to focus on blue chickens for a period of time, that there was other thoughts that popped in. Like you might have been noticing something about the screen, thinking about, when is 15 seconds going to be up, or any single other thought that popped in proves that we can't control our thinking because thoughts pop in. It's how it works. It's how we're designed. So it's not about controlling our thoughts, right? So here's the thing. What we do or can control is what we feed our mind. So just like what we feed our body gives us a healthy body, what we feed our mind gives us a healthy mind. So if you feed your mind constant news updates about the deaths, about the how quickly this can be caught, or focus in on information that comes to you around what's going on. You're feeding your mind, and so therefore those thoughts, those fearful thoughts, are going to pop up. And what will happen is you will ruminate, and your spark or your connection, we call it spark because that's the curriculum we do, but your connection with Allah will get dimmed. Your ability to tap into wisdom will be dimmed. Your clarity will be dimmed. In fact, it'll become like you're in a fog, right? And fear will take over, and you could get panicky. So we could feed our mind something different. Like, we could feed our mind and our soul something different and listen to beautiful lectures about how amazing Allah is. We could listen to the stories of the Prophet ﷺ and reflect on the story of Ibrahim ﷺ when he had to step into the fire and he said, Allah is sufficient for me, and the fire was dimmed for him. Or look at Ayyub alayhi salam and all the trials and tribulations, and including terrible illness that he went through, and yet look at the way in which he handled it, subhanallah. And what do you think is going to happen as a result of that? Because we are focusing on Allah, because our thoughts are going to be predominantly with Allah, those fearful thoughts will pop in. But they'll be like when I first just took the tea bag straight out again. They will just pass. We won't hold on to them. We won't dwell on them. We won't allow the tea to brew like this so that the dim, look how dim it's getting now. You can barely see it, right? That's what happens. The more you hang on to these thinking, the dimmer it gets. But those thoughts will just pass naturally. You won't have to do anything with them. You won't have to try and prevent them happening, because your mind is more in line with Allah and thinking about Allah. Then those fearful thoughts, when they pop up, will just pass. Because the reality is, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. That is the truth of it all. We can't deny that. It's in the Quran, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that. So in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. This is my story on fear, or focus on fear, for today. I hope inshallah you found it beneficial. If you have, I would love for you to share the khair and share this with others. Send them this link and get them to join us, because there's too many people who are struggling and they don't need to. And let's help them not struggle with what's going on in the world. Alright sisters, Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.